All right, now we're continuing talking about algebra, and one of the primary uses of algebra is to be able to rearrange a formula. And in order to do that, we have to do opposites. So in our first example, we're going to say that y is going to be equal to x plus 1. And our goal is to get the formula to say x equals something. So we need to isolate the x. And in order to do this, we're going to do opposites. So notice that you have addition. So x plus 1. So the opposite of addition is going to be subtraction. So we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, you got to do the same thing to the other side of the equation. We're doing opposites. So therefore, this is going to be y minus 1 is going to be equal to x. But normally, we like to put the x on the other side, so we're going to flip-flop everything. And so our final answer is going to be x is equal to y minus 1. So I think that you already knew that. So that's algebra, being able to rearrange a formula. Okay, but let's make it a little bit more complicated. So this time we've got that y is equal to 7 times x. So you notice this time it's multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is going to be division. So in order to get that 7 from one side over to the other side, we're going to do the opposite. So if it's 7 times x, the opposite is division. So we're going to divide both sides of the equation by 7. And then that gets the 7 over to the other side. And then we're going to take it and flip-flop the equation so that x is on the left-hand side over there. So x is equal to y divided by 7. And so again, I think that you already knew that. Okay, so let's make it harder then. So our next level of complexity is, what do you do when you got something that is squared? So this time we're going to have that y is going to be equal to x raised to the third power. So excuse me here. Yep. So y is going to be x raised to the third power. And we need to know what's the opposite of a cube. So whenever you've got something and it's raised to a power, then the opposite is going to be a root. And in this case, it would be the cubic root. The opposite of a power is going to be a root. So we say that these are inverses of each other. So in order to do this, now we're going to take the cubic root of both sides. And then these two are going to cancel each other. And so then what you end up with is just x by itself on this side. And then on this side, you got the cubic root of y. And then rearrange it so the y, or the x, is on this side over here. So x is equal to the cubic root of y. So again, not too difficult. This is stuff that I think that you ought to be able to do in my class. But now let's make it a little bit more difficult. And this time we want to go to an example like this, where it's going to be y is going to be equal to 10 raised to the x power. So notice this is different. So this one was, the variable was down here and you raised it to a certain power, but this time the variable is up here. So we cannot just say that this is like the x root of it. So you can't just do this to both sides. So that's not going to work. So we have to do a different thing, and then this is going to be called a logarithm. So it turns out that whenever you have something that's raised to the x power, you need to take a logarithm to whatever this number is that's down here. So this is going to be called the logarithm to the base 10 of that number. So we're going to take a logarithm to the base 10 of 10 raised to the x power, and whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So this is going to be the logarithm to the base 10 of y. And then what's going to happen is this logarithm thing is going to cancel that 10 thing, and you're just going to be left with an x. So that our final answer is going to be that x is equal to the logarithm to the base 10 of y. And normally we don't write the 10 thing, and so we just say that it's log. So log means logarithm to the base 10. And on your calculator you have a button. So look on your scientific calculator, which we're going to talk about all of this in a future video, but on your scientific calculator you should have a button that says log, and that's what it stands for, the logarithm. Well, it gets worse. So let's go now to our next one here. And now we want to talk about the natural logarithm, because this time instead of y being equal to 10 to the x, it's going to be y is going to be equal to e to the x. So this is a special number, exponential number. And so this occurs quite often in physics. So this is an exponential function, and the opposite of an exponential is going to be a natural logarithm. So we could do this. We could say log to the base e of y is going to be equal to the log to the base e of e to the x. So we could do it that way, but there's a special notation, and we say ln. So the natural logarithm of y, so that's what this is. The logarithm to the base e is called the natural logarithm, and then the natural logarithm of e, it cancels that out, and then this is going to be equal to x. So x is going to be equal to the natural logarithm of y. So on your calculator you should have a button that says ln, and that's what it does. Okay, so we now have this, and so if you have e to the x, then the opposite of it is going to be called the natural logarithm. But it gets worse. So then the next level of complexity is going to be trigonometry. And so we're not going to do any trigonometry, but I just want to show you this. I can't help myself. So our formula is y is equal to the cosine of some angle. Then the question is, how do we get this angle by itself? So we want to rearrange the formula so it says this angle equals something. So what we're going to do is the opposite of a cosine is going to be called an arc cosine. It's the opposite of it. And you could either write out the word arc cosine, or there's a shorthand way. You say cosine and then to a -1 power. So in a video that's coming up, I'm going to explain trigonometry and what it means. But just trust me that the opposite of the cosine is going to be called the arc cosine. And so if you take the arc cosine of both sides of the equation, then that angle is going to come out. So the angle is equal to the arc cosine of y. So that would be the answer to it. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, let's discuss what is trigonometry.